Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Propagandist. Tonight, we're talking about the Iowa caucus with my good friend Joe Walters. He is a well-experienced political analyst. How would you describe yourself, Joe?
A former campaign worker and involved in some local politics in the
Excellent.
Tampa Bay region.
And you were the secretary of the Progressive Caucus of the Hillsborough Democratic Party. Is that correct?
Yes, the Tampa Bay Progressive Caucus. I was the secretary, and they are under the Florida Progressive Caucus.
Nice. So you have a ton of experience running campaigns. You have a ton of experience serving within the local political parties. And although you're a Democrat, you understand Republicans very well, and you're actually quite objective. So if you're a Republican and you're listening, don't be turned off by the fact that he's a Democrat. So, Joe, let's jump right into it. What happened tonight with the Iowa caucus?
So the first votes of the 2024 presidential primary are in, and it looks like Donald Trump took the night easily. It is his night. Most of the major networks have called for Donald Trump. The New York Times has called for Donald Trump. So Donald Trump has won the Iowa caucus, but only 4% of the votes are in as of like 9:30. So it's still a pretty tight race between Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley for second place.
Okay, so with just a couple percent in, Donald Trump has won in such a epic fashion, but it doesn't even require the rest of the votes to come in. He's just won in it's such a landslide victory.
Yeah, and they're looking at they're not only looking at the official votes that come in when they call these primary elections, they're also looking at their entrance and exit polls. But yeah, Donald Trump has definitely won the Iowa caucus.
Okay, so when people are exiting, even though the votes necessarily haven't been counted and announced, they're asking people as they walk out, and they get a pretty clear picture that, okay, this guy's going to win. Okay.
Yeah, and you could tell when I was watching the NBC coverage that they knew just from the entrance poll that it was, even if, people were lying to them, Donald Trump still would win the caucus.
Right. He was projected to win by like 30 points going in. So obviously this isn't a surprise, but talk to me about what this means, because they have been trying, and when I say they, I mean the media, the political establishment, they've been trying to suppress Trump. Obviously, there are these, I would say, politically motivated cases being brought against him. We know that he was removed from the ballot in Colorado. We know that social media has shut him out. He only recently got back on Twitter, even though he doesn't post there anymore. So what does this mean for America? And what does this mean for the Donald Trump campaign?
Well, I think that, how you should look at the Iowa caucus this year is, are there enough anti-Trump people within the party to make a show of it? Or is the primary election going to be a contest, or is Trump the definite nominee for the November election? And looking at the data right now, first of all, it's only 4%, and they know that Donald Trump's going to win, but that doesn't mean that the numbers as of right now are going to be exactly what they are right now. There's a lot of places where the numbers can be quite different from the numbers that are in right now. It's not going to change who won the caucus, but it might change the percentages, and that's what is really more important for this caucus. Is are there enough non-Trump votes to say, okay, there is a chance that someone else could win some of these primaries? And if you're looking at the numbers right now, it's 50% Trump or 49% Trump for and the rest of the votes are for other people. I would not say that that creates a good contest for the Republican primary, because you would even if they all banded together, then you might have a chance, but that's definitely not the case. We know that some people that are voting for DeSantis are going to say, okay, well, if it's not DeSantis, I'm going to vote for Trump. They're not people that are just saying, oh, I'm not a Trump person, I'm a DeSantis person. If not DeSantis, then Nikki Haley. Well, those people might exist, but I don't think that they exist in like such numbers to make that an issue for this campaign. So as of right now, it doesn't look like it looks like it's going to be Trump in November. If you had to say something about the Iowa caucus for November, but it's going to be a long primary season, and we'll see how things shake out. And when a clear second place emerges, then we'll start to see what those numbers really look like. But just judging on tonight, it doesn't look like there's going to be enough support for anyone else to make a real contest against Trump.
What can you tell us about Nikki Haley? She has had a lot of money, a lot of media attention. Why do you think that is?
Well, okay, so without arguing the premise too much, let's say Nikki Haley.
No, go ahead. Why not? It's all good.
I don't know how much media coverage Nikki Haley is getting. She might be having her time in the spotlight, just like DeSantis had earlier in the last year. But I don't think that there's like some conspiracy, for Nikki Haley among the elites or anything like that. But if we're going to talk about Nikki Haley in the Iowa caucus, and what you're saying, is probably more, it's probably truer to say that moderates like Nikki Haley, people that are actually anti-Trump like Nikki Haley, because it's not the same base that DeSantis has, right? DeSantis base are not anti-Trump, but Nikki Haley's might be. And so moderates like Nikki Haley, and what you're seeing in the Iowa caucuses are people changing their registrations, because there is no Democratic caucus this year. So in Iowa, you can go the day, you could go this afternoon and fill out a change of party registration, and then play, in the Republican caucus.
Wow. So you're saying basically Democrats have changed their registration day of just to vote for Nikki Haley? Potentially?
Oh, for sure. That was on major networks. They talked about in some precincts they ran out of the forms to change your registration, and they had to go and get more paper to print more forms so that people could change their registration. But that's not like super uncommon, and it's not like saying that people are trying to sway the election. That happens.
I mean, it's pretty sus though. it's pretty sus. They're not Republican. I get it. There's no caucus, but you're not a Republican, so why do you care? Why do you have a horse in the race?
Because yeah, exactly. They would just prefer Nikki Haley to be the Republican nominee, for whatever reason they prefer that. But it happens when there's only a Democratic caucus as well. So in 2020, when there was no Republican caucus, but there was a Democratic caucus, you saw the same things. I don't know if they were running out of registration forms or anything like that, but you did see people that wanted to caucus. And it's like, why not? If I'm allowed to do it, why not just do it so I could, caucus, if that's what you like to do. If you're into politics, I could see myself doing that. So I don't think it's conspiracy. But yeah, I do think that I do remember hearing stories of them running out of applications in 2020.
I hear you. So let's talk about DeSantis briefly. I don't think he was ever a legitimate contender to Trump, but a lot of people did think if anyone could unseat Trump, it would potentially or most likely be DeSantis.
Yeah,
He came out hot. He had some good poll numbers, and then he sort of fizzled out. And I go based off what I see on Twitter mostly, and what I saw were people get turned off by him very, very quickly. I don't know how much of that you paid attention to. If you could walk me through what happened to the DeSantis campaign, why did he flop?
So, I'm not an expert on what happened to the campaign or what is happening to the Republican Party or anything like that. But I can tell you, as a Floridian, that I definitely thought DeSantis was the main contender for the 2024 election. I thought, but that's the thing with Trump, is if you're not a Trump person, then you don't understand Trump. And that's something I'm perfectly willing to admit, is even in 2016, event after event happened. He signed up for the election in June 2015. He made his big speech coming down the escalator, and I thought, oh yeah, right, the evangelical South is going to vote for a New York con man, and I was really wrong. And then when event after event happened, and he said this and he came out on that, I thought, oh, well, this is the end of Trump. Obviously, no one will vote for him. And they continue to vote for him. So I'm perfectly willing to admit that I don't understand the Trump base at all. Not in terms of their allegiance to Trump. Not at all. I would have thought, okay, he lost the election, he's done. He's not a viable candidate anymore. And I was wrong. So I mean, the allegiance to Donald Trump is something extraordinary in American politics. So as a Floridian, I thought that for sure Ron DeSantis was heir to the Trump throne. But no, Trump is still Trump. There is nothing beyond Trump. It's only Trump.
Yeah, I think people just find him to be very, very authentic. And I think the people that came after him, I think they see as cheap copycats. I think people look through DeSantis, they look through some of these other candidates, and they see them kind of trying to be Trump, but they just can't do it. You can't beat Trump at his own act, right? So
no.
I actually, in 2016, I was convinced, if you remember, that Trump was going to win. And it's because I went to 2 Trump rallies in Tampa.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw the energy. I've never experienced, I went to an Obama rally once. The energy was high. But what I saw at the Trump rally was, I'm not saying Trump could have beaten Obama in an election. I don't know. But the energy was insane. It was insane. And I remember when he was running against Clinton in Tampa, she had a rally, and it was pathetic in comparison. And I was like, people aren't really paying attention to this. This guy, and you know what? It was after Grab Her by the, that video that leaked. And I went to a Trump rally right after that. And I saw a sea of women with pink signs, women for Trump, women for Trump. I was like, this guy can't do any wrong. These people love him. There's something about him. They want him. He's going to win. So I wasn't surprised at all when he won.
That moment was top of mind when I was saying, event after event happened where I thought, oh, Trump's done after this. That was number one. And I was wrong. But yeah, you were right. The passion that he inspires is unheard of in politics.
So before we talk about what we think might happen, because it looks like it's going to be Trump versus Biden, and we'll talk about Biden in a bit, but I want to quickly talk about Vivek. So he was doing very, very well on Twitter. A lot of people liked him. I see a lot of Trump supporters commenting on his post saying, if Trump wasn't in the election, I'd really like you. He's obviously a very good speaker, but he's flopping at the polls. Why is Vivek running? What is his objective?
I don't know. I think that you would know way more about Vivek than I would. He reminds me of Andrew Yang in 2020. He is a Twitter candidate. He is someone that has a lot of support, but the fact is that those people don't vote. Twitter is not the polls, and people don't come out to vote like that. So I think that he, there's a lot of parallels there, and I'm sure he'll have a really successful book that his supporters will buy. And if you want to know why I think he's running, that's why.
Yeah, no, I'm in alignment with you. I'm wondering, is this just like a personal brand thing? Does he maybe hope to get some type of position in the administration? What is that?
Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure, but I know that Donald Trump attacked him going into the caucus. You saw the video that we released today. We actually collabed together on Instagram for it.
He doesn't forget, and that's what's going to be really interesting with DeSantis is, you come after the king, you better not miss. And Ron DeSantis has missed. So what is going to happen to Florida, as a result of this feud, because the way this guy is, I mean, he takes things personally and he will act personally. So I hope Florida doesn't have repercussions because for 2 years, our president is going to hate our governor.
Well, that's an interesting point. Yeah. I thought you were talking about, what might happen to Florida, prior to the election if DeSantis could somehow throw a wrench in Trump's campaign. But I would actually argue that maybe Republicans in Florida are more loyal to Trump than they are to DeSantis.
Yeah, they definitely could be.
Yeah.
And so, no, I'm commenting on if Trump wins in November, what kind of retaliation can we expect in Florida? Because Ron DeSantis had the gall to run against Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, what are some ideas that come to mind if you just had to speculate?
I don't know. It would have to be some financial thing. We didn't get some money, that we were promised for some project or something like that. Maybe some sort of I don't know. That's the scary part about this whole thing is Trump winning is what kind of president he becomes if he wins, where we know that his whole goal will be to remain president. He's going to try to that's.
Well, why do we know that? I want to push back a little bit, Joe. Why do we know that? Because this is what the media said. This is what everybody said.
That's the truth.
Well, okay, but why? Why? They said this about him. He left the office. He didn't,
He left the office after he incited a riot that people broke into the Capitol.
Well, Joe, I have to say there are a lot of reports. Now, I haven't looked into this, so I can't confirm how true it is. But there's a lot of reports that a lot of the people that were inciting the riot were actually undercover FBI agents. And there's been a lot of media about this, and there have been congressional hearings about this.
Why would they do that? Yeah, why would the FBI want to do that?
I mean, the FBI wasn't a big fan of Trump throughout his entire time in office.
But why would
a lot of the political establishment, the institutions,
what
the
would
quote
be
unquote
the point of going further, inciting a riot to the Capitol?
I mean, trying to hurt
now,
his
if
reputation.
this was a left-wing protest and something was going to go against a big business, then yeah, I'm with you. The FBI started it for sure. But I just don't see what the FBI's incentive would be on January 6th.
Well, I can't, I can speculate. I can't tell you with confidence, but I can tell you that it's clear that many factions of the government was not a big fan of Donald Trump. He was great for big business, but there was something that they didn't like about him. And I think also, I personally believe the Clintons had a vendetta against him all 4 years. When Clinton lost, she said, "I'm gonna make this guy's life hell." And I think she worked very hard behind the scenes using whatever connections and leverage she has, which we know, she's got a great network. Okay. Her and her husband, deep establishment.
Not good enough to win. Not good
enough to win, but good enough to give him hell for 4 years. I mean, they told us he was going to be this genocidal dictator president. They told us he was going to do all these crazy things, and they gave him hell at every press conference. They told us that he colluded with Russia and that he was Putin's puppet, and that, actually a lot of people give Trump hell. They say, "Oh, you didn't want to admit that you lost the election." Well, the Democrats didn't either. Clinton, the whole time she was complaining about, "I didn't actually lose. It was Putin and Cambridge Analytica that made me lose. It wasn't actually because I lost. It was because of corruption and foreign agents and things like that. So I just, I look at it from both sides. I don't trust Trump. I'm a third party guy. I like Trump's personality. I'm not going to lie. And I want to see him win because I want to see the Democrats get slapped in the face. Yeah, I do. I want to see Trump win. I know he's bad for Palestine. I know he's not going to be great on a lot of issues, but I want to see the Democrats burn for what they have done in supporting the genocide in Gaza. I'm so sick and tired of them. So I want to see Trump come back and slap the Democratic establishment.
What would a Republican be doing different right now?
I'm not saying it would be different. It might even be worse, but it doesn't matter. Okay. The Democrats are the ones who talk the language. See, Trump will tell you straight up. He will tell you straightforward who he is. The Democrats will lie to your face. In my opinion, Joe, I know you and I don't agree with this maybe on this 100%. But in my opinion, okay, to quote Malcolm X, it's the wolf and the fox.
But I think there's a big division within the Democratic Party. I think that there are people that are going to tell you straight up they are supporting Israel, and then there are people that are going to tell you straight up they're supporting Palestine. But there's only a few. But the difference between the number of elected people is, swings to one side.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's just, a lot of people have said that, Trump was the fascist. Trump was going to be the warmonger. Trump was going to take us to World War III and all these crazy things. Then Biden became president. No, he doesn't even do that many press conferences. He inched us very close to a war with Russia directly and has been insisting on funding this Ukraine war against Russia, which was unnecessary, trying to expand NATO and bringing us close to a conflict with a thermonuclear power that, runs the risk of destroying the entire world for the profit of the military industrial complex. And then, of course, we have this situation in Gaza, and it just seems like Joe Biden is the warmonger. Joe Biden is potentially the fascist. Joe Biden is potentially, the great threat to American democracy. The guy, nobody's running against him. There's no Democratic primary. The guy is as old as
There's never a primary for an incumbent.
Okay, fair enough. But he shouldn't be running. So let me hear from you now.
For sure. And hold on. If I can just comment on what you said, if we check the tapes in 2016, I had the opposite point of view. I thought Hillary Clinton will start a war with Russia and Trump will not. So I had the opposite point of view. So let's not say every Democrat,
No. I use the word they. Yeah. They as in CNN and all them. So
yeah.
But yeah, I
see what you're saying. This, and yeah, I think you're right. Biden and Ukraine has been horrible, but Putin invaded Ukraine, and what would be different if Trump was in office?
Yeah. Oh no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, yeah. I don't want to open up a whole Russia-Ukraine thing. I will just say that Putin did invade Ukraine, but history didn't start in February of 2022. For 10 years almost, the United States was funding the Ukrainian army. Obviously, there was the coup that overthrew the pro-Russian president in Ukraine, and there was the war in the Donbass region. And so there was a lot of instigation and a lot of escalation. And, I think Russia made a calculated decision when they decided we fight now or we fight later. And if we fight later, we're giving Ukraine time to get more and more Western weapons and training. It'll be harder for us. So not justifying Putin's invasion, but if we're, just geopolitically speaking, it doesn't really matter what's morally right. It's just these states are governed by reality. And I think that's it. But, Trump did fund the Ukrainian militias and then the Ukrainian army, and he gave them everything the military industrial complex pushed for. So Trump wouldn't have been any different. I'm not arguing that Trump would be different. I only like Trump in the sense that he slaps the Democrats and exposes them for the hypocrites that they are. My favorite moment is when Trump is trashing Clinton on stage, exposing her for the hypocrite that she is. But that's the position I'm in. Beggars can't be choosers. If it's up to me, Jill Stein would be president, okay? But she's never going to be president, unfortunately. No matter how many rallies we have on 56 and Fowler, okay? It's just not going to happen. So, Joe, Biden versus Trump. Let's just assume that Biden, I mean, Trump is just as old as Biden, but I think there's a difference in terms of like their energy. Biden just, he really is Sleepy Joe. So Biden, assuming he stays awake and he lives to November and he can still talk and he can still stand. Okay.
Hey, stand for Trump though.
You know what? Do you see them even debating? Will Biden even debate Trump?
I don't know. I think that Trump may cancel that just because he'd be embarrassed of the ratings. So I just don't think that anyone would watch. But yeah, no, I mean,
I feel like
be
Biden wouldn't want to
just like in
debate.
2020.
I feel like Biden wouldn't want to debate him. That's my personal opinion.
They'll make
Which is crazy, Joe.
Is fine on camera. I think that they do a good job of making sure that he looks 10 years younger on those sorts of things. So I think
Biden, you mean?
Yeah, Biden.
Yeah, like 100 milligrams of Adderall. Get a couple stilts to like keep him up.
I'm not speculating. It could just be a strong cup of coffee. But yeah.
Joe, how has it come to this though? The fact that we could even ask the question: will two presidential candidates debate one another on stage in front of America?
I don't know, but I can bring it back to the Iowa caucus because the sort of desolation of democracy that is a 2024 contest between Biden and Trump is like a horrible thought. But that's what's great about the Iowa caucus is it shows you what we could do, what democracy could look like. It shows, the best side of democracy. I think that's why we've allowed it to stick around for half a century as our first presidential primary contest, because it really is a cool showing of what democracy could be. Where people are getting out there and expressing, and there are hundreds of these caucuses, dozens to hundreds of these caucuses, and in each one of them a supporter of the presidential candidate gets up and talks about why others should caucus for their candidate. And people talk to each other and say, oh, I came in here, I guess I was going to vote for Trump, but what you're saying about Haley, I didn't know you were for Haley. They're actually getting out there and talking about their political views and what they think, and that's a cool thing to see. And that's
very like Athenian democracy, like
yeah, exactly. And so, where on one side we have this just like horrible showing of democracy with these two 70, 80-year-old white dudes, that the difference in their political views is so minute, but at least we get to start this process with this cool showing of democracy where neighbors are getting out there talking to each other about their political views and what they want and why they're supporting one candidate over the other. So that's why that's why political nerds like the Iowa caucus. Is for that reason. The fact that it's going to start like this and end with voting between which white dude supports the corporations that you like, now, because now not only do we get to choose, there's no choice between corporate and non-corporate. Even if you want to say big business and small business, we don't even have that option anymore. It's just, do you want a woke business or non-woke business? And
that's pretty much it. So, Joe, your speculation, Trump versus Biden in November, who do you think wins?
I really don't know. It's going to be close. It's going to be,
do you think there's the energy, the same energy, the anti-Trump energy from 2020 that brought so many Democrats out to vote for Biden in supposedly record numbers? Because they say,
I heard that
not,
supposedly.
well, I say that because they make it sound like Biden inspired the youth and inspired but really it was just hatred of Trump. So
yeah. And
is that hatred
I
the
don't
same?
know. Right now, I would say, on your energy question, that's easy. The answer is no. The energy isn't there. But I don't even know if Democrats have realized that Trump is the nominee yet. So, if you're not watching CNN all day or Fox News all day, then you might not even realize that Trump is the nominee, because especially in somewhere like Florida, where we hear so much about DeSantis and these other candidates, if you're on Twitter, and you're thinking Vivek has a shot, if you're especially if you're a Democrat and you're not talking to a lot of other Republicans or anything. So I think Democrats are probably just now waking up to the fact that the nominee is going to be Donald Trump, and it will be Trump versus Biden again. And so I think the energy will ramp up once the primary is over, or once the primary is winding down. I think that the energy will ramp up, because I think for most Democrats it's kind of existential. Like, it is you're saying that the whole lawsuits thing is a conspiracy, or it's politically motivated, that it's retaliation. I can tell you, even as a non-Democrat, I don't even consider that to be a possibility. I just see the lawsuits as, finally, this guy has committed so many crimes, he deserves this and more. Let's put this guy behind bars. A rational person that's not a Trump supporter or a conservative just thinks that this is normal, and that they're not even thinking that Trump has a possibility. But once they realize he does, then they might be like, oh, no, this is bad. This is because in our minds, this is going to be this is a threat against democracy, because what he has been saying for the past 4 years is that he should be president no matter what, even if the votes are against him. So that is a scary sort of thing. And I think that energy will start to show later on.
I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree.
Yeah.
I think, and yeah, clearly.
Yeah, that's cool.
But,
and that's why it's like, this is why this is a great thing, is because you could, people on both sides will watch this and kind of understand.
Well, that's what I want. Yeah, I want my audience to, to hear from someone, like yourself, and you have a lot of experience, and you know how much I, love and respect you. So definitely, it's totally cool. But I don't fully. I think any president, especially in the last 30 years, could have lawsuits against them, because they've all committed crimes of all sorts. They've all been corrupt. The question is, why do you see so much energy, right, in the judicial system against Donald Trump? You don't see that type of energy against Joe Biden, right? This guy's been in politics for 50 years. He's committed God knows how many crimes. His son is a crackhead. His son is so there's a direct link between Ukrainian energy companies bribing his son with a fake position and an enormous salary. I mean, there's just a ton of corruption with Biden, with Clinton.
Yeah, corruption is legal in the United States. No one.
Yeah, I understand, but apparently not for Donald Trump, right? So that's why I think many people feel as though it's politically
corruption like that.
But here's the thing, my point, okay, because I know we're not going to agree on it, and I'm not even telling you necessarily that I think this is what it is. I'm just telling you what it appears like to me, and what I know other Americans, especially Republicans, view it as. They view it as a crusade to take out Donald Trump, right, and to prevent him from running. And so that's one thing. The other thing is this: when they say Trump is a threat to democracy, I don't buy it. I don't, and I hope I'm right. I don't want to be proven wrong years later, but I just don't buy it. This is what they were fear mongering and telling us. But then he became president and it was business as usual. I mean, there was really nothing that he did that was drastically different from other presidents other than rhetoric, just talk. And talk can be dangerous, but it was just talk at the end of the day.
No, but he's done a lot of things different since losing the election.
Such as
the recount, the suing, calling the Georgia, election.
Yeah, but so the way that I see that was him retaliating with the same petty tactic that Hillary Clinton did, where they had this Mueller investigation trying to prove for years that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russians and that he only became president because of the interference of a foreign power, even though we know Israel and Saudi Arabia and so many other countries influenced the US elections. But there was this hyper focus on Russia and trying to present him as being, what is it?
It is different though.
In what way? In what way? Clinton, they had an FBI investigation. They gave him help for years. All we heard for years. Why do we even still know the name Mueller? Mueller. Who the hell is Mueller? Never heard of him before. And I still remember him years later. Why? Because they wouldn't shut the up about this guy Mueller investigating Trump, and every month Mueller talked to this guy and he talked to that guy and he discovered this. Why? Because they wanted to try and prove that Donald Trump should not have been president because he was cheating and he was colluding with a foreign power and it was so dangerous and a threat to democracy, et cetera, et cetera. And it was all a show. So when it was his turn, when he lost, he said, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. And that's what all this BS, the lawsuits, the recounts. What is it?
It's an interesting point of view.
That's just the way I see it, bro. It's politics. Trump was giving Clinton and the Dems exactly what they gave him. I'm not saying it's right. It's a petty tit for tat at the expense of the American people, at the expense of democracy, okay, at the expense of people's peace of mind.
The Mueller investigation was repercussions for things that Trump did. And then
what did he do?
Acted poorly after the election.
Let me ask you this, though, Joe. Do you think Trump actually colluded with the Russians to become president of the United States and that the Russians undermined the U.S. elections and got Trump in? Do you think that actually happened?
I'm not going to say yes or no because that's a complicated question. But do I think that Trump would do any sort of mischievous scheme to get elected? Absolutely.
Fair, fine. Those are two different things, though. Like, is he a con man and a scammer and a schemer and selfish? Yes. Yeah. But did he collude with Vladimir Putin to become those are two different things. Okay, look,
no, but here's how I see it, Joe. You're making a frame that I can't say yes to, but it's important to know, what I do think, and that is that one, Trump will do anything to win, and he doesn't have, the Democrats and the traditional politicians, George Bush too, played within a rule book that Trump does not play in. And also,
well, hold on. George Bush
and his staff are dumb enough to get themselves into hijinks that then they have to explain. Him and Rudy Giuliani are like,
don't even say the word Giuliani. All I remember is his hair melting onto his face.
That, no one with any common sense would ever get themselves into.
Right. But so here's the thing. First of all, George Bush became president through a series of recounts. So,
that's right.
That's one. And we know that his brother
Supreme Court was majority Republican.
Republican, and his brother was the governor, and there was a lot of shady. There's a whole that's a whole different thing. So yeah, this is not like specific to Trump.
No,
but look, Donald Trump talked a big game about I'm still the president and recounts and lawsuits, right? But even though the lawsuits were ridiculous and they didn't make a great argument in court, it was still a legal process. So if you think about it, actually, he did work within whatever rules existed, and then he left.
Except on January 6th.
On January 6th, this is a media over-exaggeration. This was not the incitement to vote. No, this is, I'm sorry, Joe, I don't buy it. I didn't buy it then. I don't buy it now. There's been a lot of congressional hearings. There's a lot of evidence. We'll do a separate thing on that one day, and we'll go into detail, okay? But I've been paying attention, and I can tell you there's a lot of questionable, the way the media framed it, the evidence that has come out. There's a lot of reason to believe that this was one big psyop, and
It's not
I
a
think they,
psyop. It's just dumb people doing dumb stuff. That's it. Like, never
but those dumb,
attribute to
it's dumb people
conspiracy
doing
what you
dumb
can
stuff.
contribute to
But Joe, it's dumb people
incompetence.
doing dumb stuff because there are smart people in the crowd deliberately trying to incite a riot, and those people work for an institution that has a history and reputation of inciting such activities, and their focus is not only on the left, they play both sides. And why? I don't know. I can't tell you with confidence
people
why.
that were there, the people that we have come up, or unless you're saying these are all plans, I don't know. But
No, not all. No,
that
not
we
all
have-
plans. No, no. You have, let's say you have 500 people, and within that crowd of 500 people, you have 30 people that are undercover FBI agents that are there with specific tasks and instructions to potentially incite a riot. That's what I'm hearing. We can do a separate video and dive through that. I'm not telling you I've like 100% buying it, right? But I can tell you that
I don't think
this information has come out, and I think it needs to be considered. But at the end of the day, what they say about Trump, the threat to democracy, he'll do anything to become president. Even after that, he still left. He left office. We can't deny this. So
yes.
the guy left. He wasn't like Hitler, like they said he was going to be, et cetera, et cetera. But
We'll see if he wins, what happens.
Buckle up, Joe. It's 2024. Okay, we're entering a multipolar world. China's rising. Russia's back. They've lost the war in Ukraine, and Russia's back. Bro, Russia's back. They collapsed in the early 90s, and they got a bunch of oil money, and they started doing business with Western Europe, and they have bounced back. They are actually now the #1 economy in Europe. They surpassed Germany. I mean, partly because Germany is in a recession, because of the United States insisting on blowing up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and severing that relationship with Russia economically, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, that's a conversation for a separate time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, okay. I mean, this has been a productive conversation. I want to ask Joe, let's say Biden doesn't run. I want you to tell me two things. One, why wouldn't he run? Right? Why would there be a change? And when I say a change, I don't mean like he had a heart attack and died, and then it's like, that's obviously why, right? I mean, maybe the Democrats decide potentially, hey, we should swap him out. So one, why? And two, who would it be?
It's too late. We would have already had to decide this. You know, we would have to set up those primaries. We would have had to have an Iowa caucus tonight. You know, I mean, it's too late for them. It's Biden.
Is there do you know if there's a precedent in history for such a thing taking place?
Yeah. It could only be from after 1968, because that's when all the rules changed. And I can't think of anything, you know, where the hold on, I don't want to like totally just misremember something. No, I can't think of anything that, you know, there would be a precedent for this right now. I'm sure there are rules though, and I'm sure that you know, we could maybe have another conversation where we bring someone else in that that knows.
Yeah, we should definitely. We'll definitely.
And I definitely know people that would know those rules and stuff like that.
Well, let me ask you this then. So initially, when Biden was running in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, he said he would only be a one-term president.
Yeah.
And the whole point was that Kamala Harris would become the first female president, or the first woman president, however you want to describe.
Yeah, and it was pretty obvious. I remember that happened. I'm almost positive. But it became pretty obvious early on that that was not going to be the case. Just because.
And why is that? Is she not a likable?
Kamala Harris. Sorry, I want to say her name right. Kamala Harris and Biden's relationship soured. And I don't know the ins and outs of that, but that was pretty obvious pretty early on.
Really? I wasn't aware that the relationship soured. I thought that Kamala Harris just had such an annoying laugh and she was not likable whatsoever. So they just said, you know what? We're going to stop showing you to the public because you're not helping us. That's the way that I saw it.
I don't think so. I think that there was probably something early on, and she thought that she needed to be in a certain room, and Biden said, no, you can't be in this room. And I think that from then on out, it was a different relationship. I think that she kind of took that to heart, like, I'm going to be the next president, and I think that Biden wasn't ready for that.
I see.
Because it was, I think, if I had to guess, and this is all just me speculating, just in my head, what would be that, like, Biden didn't want his own power diminished. That if he gave Kamala too much of the spotlight and saying, you are next, that then there could be a kind of rift between any disagreements between him and Kamala right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm here on this live stream. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it says, worn out by what they see as entrenched dysfunction and lack of focus, key West Wing aides have largely thrown up their hands at Vice President Kamala Harris and her staff, deciding there simply isn't time to deal with them right now. So I guess this is what you're referring to.
She must have wanted a certain policy. She must have had pet projects that he just was ignoring. That's what it sounds like.
I see. Wow, I had no idea. This is surprising to hear. Interesting. Okay. So Joe, I really appreciate it. We're about 50 minutes in now. I think this is a good enough conversation. This is going to be posted to YouTube. We're definitely going to do this again, but I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to the next one.